Well, the loss of a loved one is never easy. The local families say one funeral home is turning mourning into a nightmare. You've got to see the pictures to believe it. These victims are now taking legal action, questioning why R.G. Ortiz Funeral Home has not been shut down after a history of complaints. We have to warn you, though, the images you're about to see are disturbing. Anthony Carlo has this Team 12 Investigates Death Without Dignity.
My first reaction was that's not my grandmother, and that's what I told her. That's not my grandmother.
Flora Jerez left this world peacefully, like this. But that is how she looked at her viewing at R.G. Ortiz Funeral Home in Washington Heights.
The way that they describe my mother, so I just think that I'm going to faint.
Bringing this Bronx family anything but peace.
Instead of seeing their loved one, basically saw what appeared to be a disfigured clay figurine.
The family is now suing for emotional harm in what the family and their lawyers say was a botched preparation of Jerez's body.
She always wanted a beautiful service because she had a beautiful life. And the fact that we had to not just go through the pain of her dying, but also seeing her in that condition just broke our family.
This is not the only family broken by this funeral home.
Justice for Cookie!
Images sent to News 12 show disturbing differences between loved ones before and after. Their families say the bodies were turned over to Ortiz for services.
I want everybody to see what they did to my sister.
In one case, a woman says her husband, who died of a heart attack, was presented looking like he had died in a fire. A death care worker,
this is horrible how they treat people's loved ones,
who asked us to keep his identity secret for fear of retribution, describes witnessing a mishandling of bodies while working with Ortiz Funeral Home.
So those pictures show bodies that are not inside the freezers.
Yep.
And they were left there to lay for you don't know how long.
I don't know for how long.
He says he's witnessed bodies scattered on the floor and left in vans.
Piled up like sardines. Very unprofessional. Rats could be coming out of there. I saw one body with half of his face just chewed up.
That's a huge red flag.
The Funeral Consumers Alliance says this evidence points to a serious problem.
There are probably violations of basic professional standards in the codes that regulate funeral homes.
Our investigation did find a history of lawsuits. Complaints include negligently preparing the body for burial in failing to properly embalm the decedent's remains.
They have the non-delegable duty, the obligation to maintain the body, to preserve the body, and to not mishandle the body.
You've witnessed them put a body in the casket for the family to view without embalming it.
Without embalming, yes. He just dressed them up, clean them up, and that's it. And they charge the family for embalming.
We approached Michael Ortiz, the funeral home owner.
Is there anything that you can tell us about how your people are preparing the bodies?
But he refused to answer any questions on camera.
I think the revoking of a license has to be immediate for a funeral home like this.
That power lies in the hands of the State Health Department's Bureau of Funeral Directing. We submitted a request for a history of complaints and corrective action taken against the funeral home under the Freedom of Information Law. But the state delayed its response until December 16th, 3 months after our initial request. They did issue this statement, reading in part, protecting consumers and making sure funeral directors adhere to all applicable state regulations related to the practice of funeral directing is a priority of the New York State Department of Health. In the meantime, Jerez's family says they were offered a partial refund, only adding insult to injury. This family, as well as many others, are haunted by this experience.
Still feel like I'm grieving. Like every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have a do-over when it comes to the service.
Now, we gave Ortiz Funeral Home multiple chances to respond by phone, email, and in person. They've offered no explanation for what happened to Flora Jerez's body. The state would also not give us any details on specific investigations, but we will continue to follow up with them until we get the documents we've requested.